Julie. Good evening, guys. Happy election night. I know it's not one of the big ones we have every 4 years, but every year we get the opportunity to make our voices count, and this is one of those days. Hopefully, you went out and voted today. I know I did right before I came into work today. Super easy process. I actually found a new polling place a couple blocks from my house, went there, easy peasy. There was literally one person ahead of me. I don't even think it took me 10 minutes from the time I parked my car. Let me know how your experience was if you voted today. I only had the statewide propositions on my ballot. That is why it was so fast. I know some of you have school board races, utility district votes, all sorts of things on your ballot, but all of us Texans had these 8 propositions on the ballot, and we're starting to see those results come in. Now, Harris County's numbers are a little bit delayed, so the numbers that I'm going to share with you from khou.com are from the Secretary of State's office, so it's kind of an overall look. We're also waiting to see the results of the Woodlands Incorporation vote. That's something that, of course, folks up in that area are watching closely as well. We're going to have a report on that coming up tonight on KHU 11 News at 10 as well, if you want to tune in for that. But for now, let's dive right into the results that we have so far since polls closed at 7. Here's what we're looking at. So that is very tiny for me. Hopefully you can see it a little bit better. Prop 1 at this point, well, I'm just going to run down them all because it's so early. Only 5% of results are in for the Secretary of State's office. So I don't want to say that this is in game because a lot can happen with the other 95%, obviously. But let's run down what these propositions, these proposed constitutional amendments meant. So Prop 1, I will say also the analysis that I'm going to give you is from the Nonpartisan League of Women Voters of Texas. So according to its voter pamphlet, arguments for passing Prop 1 basically argue that other professional sports charitable foundations like the NFL, NBA, MLB, they're already allowed to hold raffles. So that's why supporters argue that the Professional Rodeo Cowboy Association or the Women's Professional Rodeo Association should also be able to hold raffles. Those against this constitutional amendment say raffles are another form of gambling, and if authorized, this form of gambling could eventually be extended beyond professional sports to other types of organizations. So far, the results you're looking at have zeros, don't they? That's not right. There we go. That's a little bit better. Now you can see some actual numbers. That probably helps this a little bit more, but you can also see that very few, that a very small percentage of votes have been tallied so far. Again, polls just closed at 7. So we are waiting for those results to trickle in. So Prop 1 we covered. That would allow rodeo charitable foundations like Professional Rodeo Cowboy Association, Women's Professional Rodeo Association to hold raffles. Prop 2. This would allow the legislature, or this would allow counties would be added to the list of political entities that can issue bonds or notes to help develop or redevelop unproductive, underdeveloped, or blighted areas. That is something right now cities can do. Counties have had to go a different route to achieve the same goal. So this constitutional amendment, Prop 2, would change that. According to the League of Women Voters, the argument for this is that it just allows counties the same authorization cities and towns already have. The development or redevelopment of transportation infrastructure can increase property values, and that with the state's growth, such development is needed. But those against the amendment say it could expand debt, which might raise local property taxes, and that the state's local debt ratio per person is too high, and issuing bonds like these tie up future funds for debt service payments. Also, that transportation and infrastructure projects could use money that might go to other government services and projects. So that is Prop 2, which I'm not even showing you on here. I'm so sorry. There we go. There's Prop 1 here at the top, Prop 2. Now let's talk Prop 3, and as I'm looking at it, it might be the closest. Well, I guess 3 and 4 and 5 are pretty close. So let's talk about these. If I can get my mouse to cooperate. Why is it? Stay. All right, there we go. Prop 3 on the ballot. This is how it was worded. The constitutional amendment to prohibit the state or a political subdivision of the state from prohibiting or limiting religious services of religious organizations. Pretty direct response to what happened with the shutdowns during the pandemic, a response to local leaders forcing churches to close. The League of Women Voters says supporters of this amendment argue that closing churches violates the religious freedom guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution, but opponents of the amendment say it could prevent local governments from enforcing safety measures during natural disasters. Again, a pretty clear response to actions taken during the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's move to Prop 4 in the middle of your screen there. On your ballot, it said the constitutional amendment changing the eligibility requirements for a justice of the Supreme Court, a judge of the Court of Criminal Appeals, a justice of a Court of Appeals, and a district judge. So, this is a little more complicated. Hang with me. Currently, a candidate for the Supreme Court, Court of Criminal Appeals, and regional courts of appeals must have been a practicing lawyer for at least 10 years or a practicing lawyer or judge of a court of record for a combined total of 12 years. So this amendment would add the requirement that the candidate be licensed in the state of Texas for at least 10 years, and then defines the court of record as a state court or a county court established by the legislature. Also, during that 10-year period, the candidate's law license must not have been revoked or suspended. And then for a candidate for state district judge, they have to be a U.S. citizen licensed to practice law in Texas and have been a practicing lawyer for at least 4 years, or a practicing lawyer or judge of a Texas court for a combined total of 4 years. This amendment adds the requirement that a district judge be a Texas resident, not just a U.S. citizen, a Texas resident, and would change the 4-year requirement to 8 years. Similarly, during that period, the candidate's license must not have been revoked or suspended. So the League of Women Voters says those who wanted this to be passed said that increasing the experience requirement for district court judges could result in a better qualified Texas judiciary. Opponents say those additional years of experience the amendment would require could adversely impact the diversity of candidates and judges and would restrict the size of the eligible pool of candidates. And now we're moving to Prop 5. I'm going to refresh this to see if we've got any more results coming in. I'm going to refresh it on my big computer too to see. Oh, we've gone from 5% reporting up to 6%. Still a long ways to go. But we're running down what all of these propositions, the impact they could have if passed. So Prop 5 on the ballot said the constitutional amendment providing additional powers to the State Commission on Judicial Conduct with respect to candidates for judicial office. Right now, the State Commission on Judicial Conduct accepts complaints against and then investigates and takes actions concerning alleged misconduct by judges who are currently in office. This amendment would extend that power to judicial candidates as well. And according to the League of Women Voters, supporters say allowing misconduct charges against candidates could result in fairer judicial campaigns, but opponents say the amendment's unnecessary because those who have misconduct complaints against candidates can file them with other authorities. And 6. Let's see if my mouse will cooperate. It's very touchy. Okay, Prop 6. On your ballot, it said the constitutional amendment establishing a right for residents of certain facilities to designate an essential caregiver for in-person visitation. And again, this is a direct response to what we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic and shutdowns. Family members, other caregivers were restricted from access to nursing homes, hospitals. This amendment would allow a resident of such a facility to name a person as their essential caregiver, and visits from that caregiver would become the resident's constitutional right. Remember, these are constitutional amendments that we're talking about, so changing the Texas Constitution. According to the League of Women Voters, supporters of this amendment point to the positive effects visitation can have on individuals in group care, but opponents say the amendment takes away the ability of public health and certain government officials to restrict access to such facilities in order to protect residents and staff. Bear with me as we go to 7 and 8. These are the last two of the propositions that everyone in Texas voted on. Depending on where you live, ballots may have looked different. They may have had different races, school board races, utility district races. I live on the east side of downtown, and these were the only 8 things I had to vote on today. Made things pretty quick. Prop 7 on your ballot said the constitutional amendment allowing the surviving spouse of a person who is disabled to receive a limitation on the school district ad valorem taxes on the spouse's residence homestead if the spouse is 55 years of age or older at the time of the person's death. So basically, it would allow surviving spouses of disabled persons to limit how much they pay in school district property tax. That limitation is currently provided to homeowners over the age of 65 and to disabled persons, but under the proposed amendment, the spouse would be 55 when the person who was disabled died, and they would still have to live in the home to be eligible. The League of Women Voters say supporters of this amendment say it would validate the state law that's already been passed to clarify that it is going to be enforced. Opponents say the passage could reduce tax revenues for school districts and other taxing authorities and could lead to further property tax exemptions that could negatively affect schools in the future. And Prop 8 is very similar. It says the constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to provide for an exemption from ad valorem taxation of all or part of the market value of the residence homestead of the surviving spouse of a member of the armed forces of the United States who is killed or fatally injured in the line of duty. So along the same lines, the surviving spouse of a military member who's killed in action would be entitled to right now, they are entitled to an exemption from property taxes. It's the property tax on the market value of the spouse's residence homestead if they've not remarried. So this amendment would expand eligibility for the same exception to spouses of members of the military who were killed in the line of duty rather than in action. And a death in line of duty means their death was due to injuries not related to combat, but still sustained as a result of their military duties. Are you following with me here? According to the League of Women Voters, supporters say this amendment would correct an oversight in the current law and that the additional surviving spouses it would include deserve the same benefit that the spouses already included currently receive. Opponents say the amendment will reduce tax revenues to school districts, counties, cities, special districts by lowering the property tax because many more members of the military are killed in the line of duty than they are killed in action. And so therefore more spouses, more widowers or widows would be eligible. Whew. All right, so that's the whole rundown. Let me refresh this again, see where we're at on these results. Numbers are slowly trickling in after polls closed. I'm gonna hop on Facebook and see if any of you have shared what your voting experience was like today. I really enjoyed scouting out a new polling location. So close, so convenient. I got a look inside a neighborhood school that I'd never been in before. The library was so cute. Decorated with all really creative book paintings on the wall. Of course, Dr. Seuss quotes, because you have to have one of those. Also reminded me of a Freckle Juice was one of the book spines that was painted on the wall, and I have just... The book didn't traumatize me. In 5th grade, we were asked to do a book report for a book. My group decided to do Freckle Juice, and I think there were 3 or 4 girls in the group. And one of the I think the main character is a boy. And there was a fight over who should play the boy. And my 5th grade teacher, Mr. Pierce, said it should be me because I looked most like one. Those words have stuck with me for a long time. 5th grade was a long, long time ago. Morena asked about the religious props about churches. Yes. So to go back to that one, we don't have clear results yet. Those are still coming in. But that is Prop 3. So it would prohibit state or local governments from prohibiting religious services, a direct response to what we saw happen during the COVID-19 pandemic, county leaders shutting down gatherings inside, and that applied to a lot of churches. So this would, if this passes, if Prop 3 passes, it would amend the Texas Constitution and prevent local governments from ever shutting down churches again. Sorry, trying to say a lot of discussion in the group about Prop 3, those who support it and those who don't. I think that really was when we were discussing earlier of these, which one would probably be the one to garner the most conversation. That is definitely it. I'm interested because the other prop on here that was related to choosing a caregiver, again, in response to what happened during COVID-19. That's Prop 6. Here, I'm going to pull up. You don't need to see me. Reload this so we get the latest results. It's interesting because Prop 3 and Prop 6, I'm trying to get them to both show up here. Hold on. Let me see if I can take this out. There we go. Now you'll be able to see it a little bit easier, I hope. Based on the very, very few number of votes that we're talking about right now, Prop 3, which is a response to COVID-19 shutdowns, is a lot tighter race than Prop 6, which was also. I just think that's interesting. Again, we're also waiting to get results on the Woodlands incorporation vote. The Woodlands has only been a township to date, but wants to incorporate as a city. And so voters get to weigh in on that today. A lot of arguments back and forth there. Someone give us the numbers. What I will say here, I'll give you the full screen again. These are from the Secretary of State's office. Very, very early results. Polls just closed at 7. So the numbers that you're seeing there, I mean, up where it says precincts, 595, 88,056, it gives you a idea of how few votes are tallied at this point compared to overall in the state. We're still waiting for a whole lot of precincts to come in. So these votes, we don't know which counties these are. Again, these are the ones that are being reported to the Secretary of State's office. The Secretary of State culls them all and shares them with us. You can see them on the Secretary of State's website as well, but depending on which counties these are coming from, they could skew one way or another. Oh, we're at 8% now. I'm gonna reload this page for y'all. And again, you could bookmark khou.com/elections. Super easy to check back. That's where we have all of this tallied for you, and we will continue to update those numbers as they come in from the Secretary of State's office. We're also we'll have some of the other Harris County results when we're talking about school board races, utility district races, and then of course Woodlands Incorporation. I know that's a big biggie. It's really interesting to see how close some of these races, I say close, with the note that there are only 8% of votes tallied at this point. Let's see if there are any more. Well, a lot of arguing, so that's not my place, but if you want to read more about each of the propositions that are on the ballot, we have that link on khou.com as well, a little more information for you. I haven't seen anybody who shared their voting experience today. I was really hoping to hear from folks. I mean, when I say it was fast, I thought I would be late to work because I didn't walk out of the house until 12:15. I walked out of my house at 12:15 and was at my polling place, having voted, back in the car by 12:25, and I got to work early. Started my shift at 1 o'clock today. So hopefully everybody else had a really easy breezy time at their polling place. There, Deborah says, it was great at my school. I used to go to Baker Ripley on navigation. It's one of those places, though, every election, the lawn is just covered in election signs, and you have the folks out there who are like shouting at you, if you like trying to convince you one way or another before you walk in. I don't know, it's not my jam. And just out of convenience, I hopped on harrisvotes.com to see what the wait would be, and I found this polling place even closer to my house. Nobody outside, no election signs. It was very nice to just walk into the library, have a lovely chat with some of the volunteers, the staffers who were there, and then be on my merry way in about 10 minutes. Yeah, Deborah said she didn't see any of that. I wonder, just because it's not a big election, if they didn't go all crazy. I also am going to lean toward going to schools in the future as a polling place, just because I think there would be less of that, less of those like confrontations outside of the polling place, fewer signs up there. Yeah, Deborah says the volunteers were very nice. They're always so sweet. I find they're always, older. They want to chat about the history of the neighborhood. Like today, I learned there used to be a Greek restaurant down on Clinton Drive, and it had a great salad, Greek salad with shrimp around the plate. Had a great Greek band as well. So you never really know until you start chatting with those folks. You can learn a lot about your neighborhood. I'm going to refresh this one more time before I let you go. And see. Refresh the little screen and the big screen over here. Still 8%. So throughout the night, well, usually on the hour is when we'll get Harris County, Montgomery County, Fort Bend County, stuff like that. So we will continue to update you. Watch for those updates here on Facebook. And then again, if you want to check back at any point tonight, just go to khou.com/elections. Easy peasy. That'll send you here where we have the results from the Secretary of State's office, tracking those 8 propositions that were on every Texan's ballot. And then tonight at 10, we are going to, sorry, something happened. I don't know if you can hear, we've got the Astros on in the background. Oh, a dude in a Braves hat is rounding the bases, so that's not good. All right. Anyway, tonight at 10, we're going to have a report on the Woodlands Incorporation vote, so be sure to tune in for that and check khou.com for the story later this evening. For now, have a great night.